Speaking of quality of life issues, tell us about your recent survey, Ruth.
Well, the European Commission did an opinion poll across Europe last September, and they were looking at the whole issue of work-life balance. So basically, you know, holding down a job and keeping your family life sane and sensible. And
none of us can do that, can we?
It's tough for everybody, I think. And they asked people how satisfied they were with the balance in their life between work and home. And Irish people came up near the top. And I suppose this is in spite of, you know, we all know that there are families out there who have it quite tough. I think in the economic boom that we've had, that Irish women have really stepped up to the plate. They've stayed in the workplace after having their children. They often have a long commute. They may indeed have elderly relatives, and there's such a thing as the sandwich generation who are looking after kids and who are looking after elderly relatives. So they've, you know, I think Irish women have been troopers throughout the economic boom.
And so the Irish women who are watching the programme today are genuinely very happy with the way they're managing to balance it all.
No, far be it from me to give out or question anything. Now, I have to question this one. 2/3 say they are happy with the government support for families with children, compared to 12% of Portuguese, 90% of Spanish. 47% are happy with the government's policy to support those who look after older relatives. Now, anecdotally, if you were to go out there and do your own straw poll, I wager that...
Well, the question I'd ask is, was this survey done pre-budget?
It was done pre-budget. It was done in early September, so clearly I think the thing that has really hit home with everybody is the speed of the change in circumstances in the economy. I think there were a lot of experts telling people for a long time that things were going to change and that things couldn't go on as they were. But I think everybody from the politicians down has been shocked by the speed of the transformation. On the other hand, in defence of the opinions there, when they were asked would they like more tax allowances,
9 out of 10.
And when they were asked, I think Irish people also said they would like more flexible childcare arrangements and more access to part-time work.
92% and 87% respectively.
And I think they also said that, you know, the arrangement where both parents worked full-time was very tough and wasn't necessarily the best, easiest solution unless you have a lot of backup.
But Ruth, in a lot of cases, and I think it's right across the board with all Irish people, we hate to admit to our failings. So when you were doing this survey, could it be a case of you were surveying people who don't want to admit that they don't have that happy life balance?
If you look at every opinion poll that comes out, it says Irish people are optimistic.
And happy.
Irish people are happy.
Irish people.
Irish people have high satisfaction in their lives. And I think it is something in the culture. You might say, who are these people? Because we all moan to each other. But I think there is something in the Irish culture that people are kind of positive, and they still have, in spite of the changes in society, there's still strong friendships, strong family links. And, you know, there is a positive outlook on life.
And a sense of community, which is hugely
I imagine
important.
do you still think
there's
a lovely pace of life in the Gaeltacht?
Well, yes and no. It is the fantastic thing about it is that we have very little kind of problems with traffic.
You don't have the M50 in
No, so that gives you back about 2 hours a day, you know, which is really fantastic.
Yeah.
The other thing which because I used to live in Inchicore, I lived in Dublin, various parts of Dublin for 20 years, and the other fantastic thing about living in a place like Spiddal is that you're not always constantly setting alarms and always kind of looking out in case your house would be broken into.
Now, that's what I want to pick you up on, because you spoke about the sense of community that it still is prevalent in Irish society today. I fundamentally disagree with you to the extent that I think Ireland has gone down a road, socially and economically, which is a very bad road. That we forget.
What would you do instead, Alan?
No, what I try and do is, I mean, I hate to use this term, John Major used it, time to get back to basics, but I actually genuinely believe that we have to, about people, the importance of people. Neighbour.
So what changes would you make if you were in government? What changes would you make?
No, I'm not saying that we have to make changes in government. I think we as a nation, we as a people, have to start looking at life fundamentally differently.
Yeah, well, Bertie Ahern used to talk about this. He talked about, you know, the voluntary spirit, and that was really an important. That was patriotism, you know, like with a small p. And I wouldn't be a huge fan of Bertie, but I think that there's a lot of truth in that. And I think that getting involved. I know when I moved, I was here for 20 years in Dublin. Then I moved to Spiddal, and the way I got to know people was getting involved in the parents' committee in the school. And that, okay, I had to invest a certain amount of time in it, but the amount I got back in terms of friendship and just contacts and just feeling settled.
Bill, would you consider yourself civic-minded?
Oh, well, yeah. I've been very lucky in my life, so I think it's important to give something back. And so to that end, I'm involved in an educational charity in West Tala, where we're trying to get particularly women back into the education system. And because they'll encourage then their kids to come in. And so we put about 500 people a year through various...
Well, let me put that one to you then, Bill. Do you think we're heading down that road less travelled, that is the wrong road for this country to be heading down, that we've been on for the past 10 years, the past 5 years?
I think we're on the road more travelled.
In a funny way with this
from our point of view, it's a road less travelled, but it's a new road for us.
Yeah. I think there is a bit of getting back to some of our core strengths. When I worked for American companies, they would say to me, look, Bill, we've worked in Japan. You tell a Japanese exactly how to do it, and he'll do it the same way forever. You tell an Irish person how to do a thing, and the first thing they'll do is try and figure out how they'll do it differently and better. So we have a creative gene in us, and we are basically optimistic.
Are we better people today than we were, for example, when you were growing up? Or is it just that the dynamics have changed in the world and we move with those dynamics?
We're a more confident... do you remember, remember Emmett's statement when Ireland takes its place among the world? I suspect that we're more comfortable with our place as being sort of equals. No longer do we think, you know, the Yanks are so bad.
We don't want to hark back to the bad old days. There was plenty of things that went on in this country back in the 50s and 60s that...
but are we a tighter people? How do we have that sense of spirit, community for our fellow human being?
You have to face it that you can't have everything all the time. But the thing is to find the balance and the work-life balance. The balance between economic prosperity and a strong community. A balance between a strong economy and good protection for workers and families and so on. And that's always evolving, you know, the solutions to those problems.